Welcome back to How China Works. This is Ying Li, your co-host. Did you know that Chongqing has a long history in China, and the region was originally a state belonging to the Ba people, and that it was established in the 11th century BC. In 1189 CE, Chongqing got its current name. In 1891, Chongqing became an important economic center in China, as it became the first inland open to trade from outside China. In 1929, it became a municipality of the Republic of China and the capital of China during the Second Sino-Japanese War from 1937 to 1945. The city is also the largest area for the manufacture of motorcycles in China. It is considered to be the motherland of hot pot. Yes, you guessed it right, 火锅. The most famous dish in China, usually eaten collectively by a group of people, boiling their food in a big pot with spicy soups, or not spicy. There are estimated 40,000 restaurants in Chongqing. Chongqing has the population of 34 million people, equal to the entire population of Uzbekistan. Well, the interesting quote above is from my friend Alim Alimov, co-founder of Scholar, an independent nonprofit youth organization aimed at providing a platform for young leaders from SEO. He just came back from Chongqing, and I was amazed by it too. Today, our guest is Clark Rubino, Rubino, who is the founder and CEO of Chongqing Bright Ideas Business and chapter director of Startup Grand, the largest independent startup community. Originally from the United States, Clark arrived in Chongqing in 2011 with the goal of opening his own wholly foreign-owned enterprise. And he has not only achieved his goal, but made Chongqing his favorite home. He guides Chinese startups, entrepreneurs, and SMEs to new and emerging markets and help international business to start in Chongqing. He's been living, teaching, and doing business mostly in Western China. By communicating, observing, and engaging with him, I found that he's a great example who navigates so well among Chinese and other international communities here in Chongqing, this hidden treasure in China. And I was invited to speak about cultural intelligence, CQ, a few days ago there in Chongqing, which by initials happened to be CQ2. What a serendipity. Anyway, I had so much fun. Please enjoy the show. Welcome to How China Works, Clark. We have this special edition because I'm right here sitting with you here in Chongqing. So why don't you take 30 to 60 seconds to introduce who you are, where you come from, and why Chongqing and why this particular initiative you're doing?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. First, I want to say I'm very happy to be speaking with you on your podcast now. I do listen to it, and I'm very happy that now I get to be a part of it. It means a lot to me. And I'm very glad that you were able to come to Chongqing for Startup Grind this time. And it was very good event that we had this last Wednesday. And I think that if you could come back again in the future, we would gladly welcome you. So how did I get to Chongqing?
You can first start with introduce yourself a little bit, like really in a few lines.
Okay.
How could our audience understand where
Sure.
you're from
Sure.
and why you're here?
Okay, I'm an American living in Chongqing, China. Mm-hmm. I've been in China, mostly Western China, for 10 years, Chongqing for 8 years. And I'm currently serving as the director of Startup Grind Chongqing chapter. It's a global organization for entrepreneur startup stakeholders. We're all around the world. We started over 7 years ago in Silicon Valley, and we've since grown to 2 million entrepreneurs in our community around the world. And I met you actually because of one of our directors in Beijing. His name's Yalta. And you've spoken at one of his events in Beijing as well, right?
Beijing. That's how we got connected.
Yeah, it's a good way to connect. And I've been in Chongqing since 2011. And the reason why I came to China is a lot to do with my identity. I believe that everyone has a purpose in life, and my purpose is to be a bridge builder, to be a connector. I learned this new word since being part of Startup Grind, community builder. Never heard somebody coin that term until I joined Startup Grind. So it's interesting. A lot of the other people that I meet through this platform that are like me, we tend to be awkward extroverts in some situations that back in school and high school, we might have been with the nerds, the geeks, the dorks. In college, we found our own. But there's always this kind of situation where we're very outgoing, but some people tend to find us a little bit different than the normal or what people consider an average extrovert to be. So we kind of found in this community other people that are like that, that go beyond to just socialize and actually attempt to bridge gaps, to fill in places in our communities where there's something lacking.
So you connected with this particular concept before, right? Even before you came to China.
Right.
So you came to West China for the first stop, right? Where was that?
So the first time I came to China was in 2005 for a summer program, a cultural lingua program in Qinghai, Shifan Dashui. That's
Qinghai.
A normal university, a teacher's university in Western China just right off the Tibetan Plateau and the Silk Road. And I had nothing in my mind told me to go there. It was a friend that invited me. I didn't even search it up on the internet, look into it, but a friend was organizing a culture language program, an exchange program with the local Chinese students and American college students, and said, hey, I used to live in Western China. This place is pretty cool. I think you're going to like it. And the people there are pretty sweet people.
What was your first impression when you landed or engaged with Qinghai people in West China during this particular program?
Something that kind of stands out to me about Qinghai people is that they are very strong. Their climate is a bit harsh, but while they're from a harsh climate, very rustic in some situations, they tend to be strong and rough, right? But they're quite warm when you get to know them. Like, they might be a little shy when they first come up to a foreigner or to someone not from there, but they quickly warm up and they invite you to go out with them, drink some qingkejiu, like barley alcohol, barley wine spirits, or have some mianpian and xiaokao together. So in fact, almost everywhere I went there were people always inviting me to drink some of their salty tea or some qingkejiu or something like that.
You pick up some local specialty.
Yeah,
here, right?
Exactly.
I'm sure. But later you moved to Chongqing. So in Chongqing, and as kind of like this particular stop for me, I've never been to Chongqing, like this first time.
Yeah.
What struck me most is, of course, not just the culture and the food.
Yes.
But the desire to connect with outside the world.
Yes.
And I feel really impressed by even for here for 2 days. I'm connected with tons of people, through the events we talked last night.
Right.
So how many years have you been here? Like 8?
I've been here for 8 years. I moved here in February of 2011.
Right.
And
how do you describe, since you're right now working in this international entrepreneurship community or ecosystem, Startup Grind?
Yes.
How do you describe the ecosystem or the entrepreneurship here, or entrepreneurship involvement in Chongqing since you've been here for a while?
Okay, so it's still a work in progress, because even though there are a few startups here, there are not so many like we have in Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, and even Chengdu. But little by little, I think because of a lot of favorable policy from an intention from the central government, Beijing has put a lot of resources in Chongqing and made,
such as?
They've given a lot of tax breaks for new development that focuses on like co-working and also high tech. This is happening all over China, but I think particularly in Chongqing, we're seeing a lot more developments we have a biotech park. There's a Swiss China tech park. There's a big data valley here. There's even more co-working spaces than I can think of off the top of my head. There's at least 30 or 40. And the thing is, though, most of them are at least half empty. So it'll still take a while to attract more startups to come here or to choose Chongqing as their target city, their target market. But we actually do have a few global footprint startups here. There's a VAT tax refund service that has started up here. There's also an education AI company that helps students pass TOEFL and SAT. We also are the HQ. We have the HQ for Panda Yongche. That's a car sharing application, just like the bike sharing, but you can do it with cars, scan a code.
Yeah, interestingly, we just mentioned about this earlier today. You were able to use your phone, right? And to not just, of course, buy a lot of things, but you swipe and to get on the bus and you do a lot of choices. I mean, it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, I still have to download the app for that to work, though.
Sure, like for someone like Clark has been living in China, even in Chongqing for 8 years.
Yes.
Wow, I think he is more Chinese than me.
No.
When it comes to putting himself in adapting the local digitalization and evolvement, right? I think
maybe.
And because the way when I observe, you pull out your phone and to start click a few buttons on a few apps, and the service came, and that's quite like. Did you find that it's pretty natural for an international audience, international people to pick up that habits in China and benefit from or enjoy that kind of?
Honestly, I think it depends on your level of Chinese. A lot of the apps haven't been translated to English yet. Didi has. And then there are a few apps that the Chinese characters are easier to recognize, or the UI is really good. So some people can memorize the steps that they have to do things. For example, Wuba, for finding, Tongcheng, Wuba Tongcheng, for finding the apartment. A lot of Chongqing expats use that. So
kind of which one is for which kind of service.
Right, and then how to click to reveal the phone number or to send a message to see if the apartment is available for rent.
Do you think that Chongqing embracing this particular type of digital transformation brings significant convenience to people, or you think sometimes it might cause some challenges for people also to live here?
Good question. I have to think about that for a moment. You caught me off guard there.
We will go through.
It's okay. I think it's in general. There's always going to be some advancement and then a few steps back. Well, we tried this, but that didn't work. So let's adjust the UI a little bit.
Right.
Make sure that we understand what our customers need. I can only speak from my perspective. Sometimes the apps that I use here in Chongqing are very helpful and shorten my make the work more efficient, or the chore that I'm about to do a bit more efficient, like ordering a cleaner to come clean the air conditioner in my apartment. But sometimes it adds extra steps and frustration when the Wi-Fi doesn't reach our destination, our location, and we have to apply for a refund or something like that, so and then order again.
Yeah, Wi-Fi is food delivery.
Yes.
So basically you do that every single day.
No, I don't order every day, but yeah, a few times a week I might order something.
Yeah.
Yes. And I cook for myself a lot here. I think Chongqing has a lot to offer for expats.
When it comes to?
Yeah, when it comes to food choices, freshness of food, it's a very subtropical zone. And so the weather is conducive here for growing a lot of fresh produce.
Yeah.
Even though it can be smoggy sometimes, we do have a lot of clear days, windy days. So the pollution doesn't get quite as high as it can get in some cities out east where there are more factories. And Chongqing municipality is working really hard to keep the city clean.
Can you give us some examples, since we're talking about some policymakers and municipal actually making the city and moving in a certain direction when it comes to more advanced development. So could you give some example that, if any, dealing with the local stakeholders, especially very local Chongqing, municipal and some, I say, investors or entrepreneurs, and people who actually make this better, make this place or function. So what are the experience in dealing with them when it comes to getting your purpose, your expectation?
Well, to be honest, I don't work with them very often, but usually if we come up against something, like, for example, I'll just give a short story. So there was one time when I needed to get a license, my driver's license here in Western China, and came up against a problem in the system that I basically didn't pass the test, even though I studied for it really well. I didn't pass the test because I was short by 1 or 2 questions on the test. And usually you can only take the test twice in one day, then you have to take it again the next day. In this case, though, I was able to inquire up the ranks from one officer all the way to a higher level. And because the next day was the beginning of the national holiday, that's when China takes 10 days off basically from work. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but usually it's a week off. And we had already planned to rent a car and travel across, go to Western China, go down to Yunnan.
So you need that driver's license?
Yeah, so I needed the driver's license. I pointed out the reasons why I was confused on the test, and that there were some translation misunderstanding that I had on the test, and he understood. He said, yeah, this is actually, I can see why you made that mistake and that you actually do know the real rules.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, I can't let you get the driver's license now, but I'll give you 2 more chances today. I'll call the people at the testing center for you. He was the top guy in the district, probably the chief of the traffic police. And I asked his manager to ask him if he would just give me 5 minutes to explain my point. And often in cases like this, if a foreigner can explain, not a lie, but just honestly what happened and the difficulties maybe in the culture, maybe in the way that things are translated or explained to foreigners, it's not exactly how the local Chinese understand them. And so if you work with these municipal civil servants in this way and ask them the questions that they need to know to understand your situation, then they come around to understand and become a little bit more lenient with us because we're visitors, we're not from here.
Right.
But that isn't the reason why I'm talking about Western China as the place where I want to be. It's not because of this kind of leniency. I think most China is very understanding toward foreign international guests and expats. But I wanted to go back to how Western China tends to be cleaner than Eastern China in terms of air quality and natural resources, greenery. That's one reason why I chose Western China after living here and visiting China. Like I said, I lived in Xining for a while, and then while I was there, I went around China. I visited, went on a circuit trip from in my first year, at my first spring festival. I took the train through Xi'an, stopped in Xi'an, stopped in Zhengzhou for a little while, then went to Beijing, and then went all the way up to Harbin, and then went down towards Xiamen, or first Anhui, and then Fuzhou, Fujian,
basically
Xiamen.
over China.
Yeah, all over China, and then back around down the south, Guangzhou to Nanning, and then Kunming. And by comparison, I felt Western China to be more raw, more unspoiled, more, not that Eastern China is spoiled in any way, but I think there's a lot of more internationalization in Eastern China, globalization. People are used to foreigners there. While in the West, we're still a little bit more exotic, and there's a lot less of us here. So a lot of people that live in Western China want to keep Western China a secret from the rest of the world, because we have our own little
kingdom.
Yeah, it's not a kingdom, but it's like our own little corner of China where we don't get bothered by the rest of the world, or something like that, or some special benefits from being here, from being unique, or having this experience in a place that's quite pure in its culture. I would say it's changed a lot less than Eastern China has, and because of that, I feel that there's a more unique experience here.
How big is this community? Like someone like you choose the Western China, or typically the area like Chongqing, for their choice here in China?
I can't say for sure, but not counting international students, because international students, they usually don't have a chance to research different cities. They apply for university, and they choose the one that gives them the best options, right? The best scholarship, or the best situation for them. But people that are they've been to China for a little while, and then they choose Western China after exploring. I've run into a dozen of us like this, and probably in our WeChat, like in WeChat groups in Chongqing, there's maybe 200 to 300 people like this that have experienced different parts of China, and they've landed on Chongqing or Chengdu or other Western cities because they like this more Wild West experience.
Yeah, there must be some unique attractiveness of Chongqing.
Yeah.
So you guys want to stay. And also maybe because, like the example you just gave, it's because explanation and communication, the efforts you spend on to make life better here. I think that because by observing how you deal with different people and managing the organization and the events, I felt that, well, there must be something that you've done to make your life at ease or easier here. If you could give some advice for people to right now considering moving or living or working, engaging with China, for either like put life quality as the priority, or the future of career and development. So if you could give some advice, how could they better to, if they want to come to a place like you, what are the best?
I think it's an integrated process. It's integral. It's whole. You have to try not to compartmentalize like many Western people do. They have their social sphere, their work sphere, and they divorce all of these together. In Eastern thought, and particularly in Western China, even so in Eastern China, you'll spend a lot of time with your work colleagues and build friendships with them, go out to restaurants afterwards, sit around a hot pot. Chongqing is very famous for its hot pot.
Right.
A lot of colleagues, maybe once or twice a month, will go out together and socialize over some food, some beer, maybe some baijiu. Open up to that. You don't have to drink alcohol. You can have tea. A lot of people are starting to drive, and they don't want to have any influence of alcohol while they're driving. So, people are beginning to understand that as well. So if you don't want to drink, pick up a glass of Wang Lao Ji, or a can of this herbal tea that we often drink with our food here, and clean glasses and say ganbei with some of your colleagues. Build friendships that that you can be helpful to. So a lot of friends, they might just want to use a foreigner for access to the outside world, or they might want to just practice their English, but try to find Chinese friends that want to go beyond that want to share a little bit of their life with you or skills with you. Maybe pick up a ping pong ball and hang out on your off day, or play badminton, or go hiking on the nearest mountain together. I think Chinese people are very willing to cross boundaries, to make friends. When you're in these kind of tense situations with your own Chinese colleagues or other people that you might be interacting with from day to day, try to lighten the situation by telling a joke or laugh about something, and take it easy when you face difficulties in life, and try to find ways that you can share your life with them and learn from each other. So make it, like I said, make it something where everything is a bit more connected, with resources, with time, with values, improve dialogue with your neighbors. Try to learn some Chinese, attend calligraphy class, download Pleco to your phone, which is an app for learning Chinese language with a dictionary, and it has this optical scanner.
Do you use that a lot?
Yeah, that's how I learned most of my Chinese, that I could actually read some Chinese in my phone, is by using the scanner and the pinyin reader. So it basically takes every character in text, and if you highlight it, you can see its pinyin form, which is the Romanized version of Chinese, and then you can also see the English translation. And so it gives you a word-by-word translation instead of copy-paste into Google Translate, which gives you an idea translation, which sometimes can be completely different, and a lot of things get lost in translation. So as a practitioner in cultural mingling and enjoyment, of what is local, I really encourage anybody that comes out to China, especially Western China, to give things a try. It might seem a bit odd that somebody might be asking you to jump into a river or swim somewhere or go on a hike that you've never considered doing before. But perhaps you might find that just by trading hobbies or hanging out with people that have similar interests as you, maybe you can't speak language very well in the beginning, but you might be able to build your language ability and connect more closely with them after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Being more open.
Yeah.
It's always going to bring a lot of not just benefits, but also bring new horizons to you.
I agree completely. And that's one reason why I looked into organizations, and I came across Startup Grind, a friend who's very similar to you. I'm going to give a shout out to her. Her name's Demi, and she's also a community builder. She mentioned to me about Startup Grind while she was working on a project of intercultural communication in Chongqing and as well as Hong Kong. Intercultural education, actually, is something that she's been working on. And she told me Startup Grind's coming to Chongqing, and I said, okay, when? And then one thing led to another, and eventually someone said, well, why don't you apply to help host it? And so
you grabbed the opportunity.
Yeah, I grabbed the opportunity as soon as I could find it. And I think that our core values is what draws us all together with Startup Grind, is to help others and to give and to make friends.
Right.
So with these kind of values, you can really improve your situation of understanding and of mutual benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
Referring back to the event last night
Yes.
we held, it was quite fascinating to me that when I was at the venue, I feel, wow, everybody's so welcoming. That's the first thing. Secondly, later I learned that it was kind of like a new type of cooperation you guys developed with a local Chinese co-working space.
A design firm, actually, a design institute.
Yeah, it's called 中国工业设计院, something like that.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a China Industrial Design Institute. They have their own lab there for prototyping.
Right.
And they also have space for offices,
Right.
co-working as well. But that's not their main focus. Apparently, their main focus is development, like finding projects that are worthy of investment, right?
Yeah, there's this type of local innovation center
Yes.
are pretty common in many places in China.
Right.
What I find quite interesting and also refreshing to me is this type you guys intertwine together in some way, integrated,
Yes.
create a new type of event, and I was able to witness the whole thing, and that's exactly the concept we always mention in our program, and even how China works. This is the bridge building. This is the cultural intelligence applied in real places.
Yeah.
You go extra mile. Like imagine you go extra miles by improving life quality, and at the same time your career opportunities in Chongqing, and at the same time you found our international brand, American brand, Star brand, and you brought it to life for the local life, and that projects have significance.
Yes,
And
it does.
Yeah, and really thinking about it, that's a little twist, this little magic we do to bring people together.
Yes.
That event I was a little bit shocked, because when I saw the people from teenagers to people over 65 years old, I saw that it was exactly the scene. I always say that diverse groups who came here for understanding, like every party, like the Star Grand and also the local communities.
Yes.
With that being said, what is your goal for the near future?
Good question.
Or when it comes to either leading a Chongqing chapter of Star Grand or leading your particular mission?
Sure.
Bridge building forward.
Right. Well, Startup Grind isn't my day job. I'm also an entrepreneur, and it's been my dream one day to create a kind of institute that combines culture and business and education, cross-cultural education, intercultural education, as kind of a 2+2 program where students can come to Chongqing, Western China, can learn about Chinese business, and likewise, students from Western China can go to the US and other countries to learn about business in other places and become their own startup founders or directors of leading companies around the world, using both culture, language, tech, and business combined into one. So that's why I started my own business in Chongqing. Right now it's a consulting company, but as I can find other stakeholders, possibly co-founders, investors, maybe someday we can start such kind of project. But that's a dream way off in the distance. I tried when I first came to Chongqing to start a school with a Chinese partner, and it failed because we didn't understand Chongqing culture well enough. He's not from Chongqing.
Right.
But with more maturity, and we parted ways for a little while, but you met him last night. He actually brought some of the students. He has his own school now. And we still are friends, so we still consider projects together. So little by little, we will do intercultural projects, bring students abroad, and bring American students to China as well for different activities or camps, perhaps, or investigative trips, both young founders and people who are retired as well. And Startup Grind, I think, is also a good platform for that. You just by looking at the values on the website and going to startupgrind.com, you can see what kind of people are involved and what kind of activities we host all over the world. So I'll continue to do that until we can find indigenous local person to take over the chapter, because ideally you want movements to be led by locals. So I'll be here for the long run until it's established.
Awesome. That's very well presented.
Thanks.
And we are really looking forward to more examples like you taking the initiative in not just bridge building.
Yeah.
You said community building.
Yes.
But fundamentally, it's a community of bridge builders. And so they can share their influence, entrepreneurship, cultural intelligence to foster empathy and new opportunities.
Thank
and
you.
that is exactly the goal why we're here having this particular conversation with Alex. And once again, thank you so much, Clark.
You're very welcome. It's a great pleasure to be on this show with you. And I forgot to answer, to just say real quick, I forgot to say that I did get that driver's license, actually.
Good.
He had the empathy and let me test again, and I passed on my 4th try that day.
And we won't forget that story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll see you again next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that's the show this week. Thanks to Clark for being our guest. Don't forget to visit howchinaworkspodcast.com to learn more about the show, chase down the links from this show, or just to send a message to Ying and myself to let us know what you would like to hear more of, or if we could be of service to you some way. Thank you again for listening. On behalf of Ying Lee, this is Brendan Davis, and we'll see you next week on How China Works.